Emily was an ordinary girl living an ordinary life, but her heart was far from ordinary. Every morning, before the city woke up, she walked through the quiet streets to the restaurant where she worked. The smell of freshly baked bread filled the air as she tied her apron, brushed her hair back, and got ready to face another long day. She worked as a waitress at one of the city's most famous luxury restaurants, a place where rich businessmen, celebrities, and powerful families came to eat. The chandeliers sparkled, the tables were set with silver cutlery, and soft music played in the background. But behind all that beauty, Emily's life was anything but glamorous. She had been working there for almost 3 years. Her salary wasn't high, but it was enough to pay her rent and help her younger sister with college fees. Emily never complained about her hard life. She believed that every honest job was worth doing with love and care. Her coworkers often admired her calm nature. Even when customers shouted or treated her rudely, Emily never lost her temper. She always smiled and said, "Thank you, sir," or "Have a nice day." People wondered why she never seemed angry. The truth was that Emily had learned early in life that anger only makes pain last longer. Her parents had passed away when she was young, and since then, she had been taking care of her sister, Lily. That responsibility made her strong and patient. She knew what it meant to struggle and survive. At work, Emily was known for her kindness. When new waiters joined, she helped them learn the menu and showed them how to deal with difficult customers. She was never jealous or rude, even when others got promoted before her. Her boss, Mr. Parker, trusted her completely because she was honest and hardworking. Sometimes he even said, "If all employees were like Emily, this place would run perfectly." But not everyone treated her with respect. Some of the rich customers saw her as nothing more than a servant. They would snap their fingers, make unreasonable demands, and talk down to her as if she didn't matter. Emily had grown used to such behavior, but deep inside, she sometimes wished people could see beyond her uniform. She wished they could see the person she really was. A woman who had dreams, feelings, and a story of her own. Every evening, when her shift ended, she would take the bus home. She lived in a small apartment on the edge of the city, where the rent was cheap but the neighbors were kind. She would make tea, call her sister, and talk about her day. Sometimes Lily would say, "One day, you'll have your own restaurant, and people will treat you like a queen." Emily would laugh softly and reply, "Maybe one day, but for now, I'm happy where I am." She didn't realize then how close her life was to changing forever. One thing no one at the restaurant knew was that Emily had a secret. A secret so surprising that it could change how everyone looked at her. She wasn't just a poor waitress trying to survive. Her life had taken a beautiful turn recently. A few months ago, she had met someone special, Daniel. He wasn't like the other rich men she had served before. Daniel was kind, humble, and had a gentle heart. He treated everyone with respect, whether it was a waiter, a cleaner, or a CEO. Emily had met him one evening when the restaurant was almost empty. He was sitting alone, reading a book while waiting for his food. When she served his meal, they started talking. His simple nature impressed her, and he admired her hard work and honesty. Over the next few weeks, he came back often, always sitting at the same table. They talked about life, dreams, and values. Slowly, their friendship grew into love. Daniel never told her much about his background. He said he was in business but never boasted about money. Emily liked that about him. She didn't care who he was. What mattered was how he treated her. Then, one evening, under the warm glow of sunset, Daniel had surprised her. He knelt down and asked her to marry him. Emily was shocked but overjoyed. Her eyes filled with tears as she said yes. He slipped a beautiful diamond ring on her finger. A ring so elegant it sparkled like a star. However, Emily was shy about showing it. She didn't want people at work to know. She wanted to keep her personal life private until the time was right. So, she gave the ring to her close friend Clara to keep safe for a few days. "I'll wear it after the weekend," she said with a smile. She had no idea that the weekend ahead would change everything. The next day, she returned to work like always, with the same humble smile and quiet grace. No one had any clue that the woman serving coffee and cleaning tables was engaged to a man from one of the city's most powerful families. To them, she was just the waitress. But fate was preparing something extraordinary. That morning, as Emily looked at her reflection in the restaurant's mirror, she whispered to herself, "Just keep smiling. Good things happen to good people." She believed that kindness always came back in unexpected ways. She didn't know that her belief was about to be tested and proven true in front of everyone. Emily's life may have looked ordinary, but her heart carried the courage of someone who had faced pain and still chosen kindness. And sometimes it's people like her, the ones who seem invisible, who end up teaching the world its most powerful lessons. Her story was just beginning, and soon the entire restaurant, and even the proud millionaire family who would walk through those doors, would discover who Emily truly was. Because behind that simple apron and shy smile was a woman with dignity, strength, and a secret diamond ring that would change everything. The next day at the restaurant started just like any other for Emily. The air smelled of roasted coffee beans, the sound of clinking plates filled the room, and the staff hurried to prepare for the evening rush. Emily moved gracefully from table to table, polishing glasses, setting napkins, and checking the little details that most people never noticed. She didn't know that this would be one of the most unforgettable days of her life. Around 6 in the evening, the restaurant manager, Mr. Parker, rushed in with a nervous look. "Everyone, listen up," he called out. "Tonight, we have a very important family coming in. The Harrisons. Make sure everything is perfect." The moment he said the name, the staff exchanged worried glances. The Harrison family was famous in the city for their wealth and their pride. They owned several businesses, drove luxury cars, and appeared in magazines. But behind their perfect image, they were known for being rude, demanding, and cruel to anyone they thought was below them. Emily had never served them before, but she had heard stories. Waiters who had served them in the past said they made impossible demands and shouted over the smallest mistakes. "Just smile and stay calm," Emily told herself quietly. She believed in treating everyone with respect, no matter how they behaved. A few minutes later, a line of luxury cars stopped outside. The restaurant's front door opened, and the Harrison family walked in like royalty. Mr. Harrison, a tall man in a black suit, looked around with a sense of ownership. His wife wore diamond jewelry that sparkled under the chandelier. Their daughter, Amanda, scrolled on her phone, looking bored, while their son, Ryan, adjusted his designer watch and smirked at everyone around him. They moved as if the entire place existed only for them. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to La Belle Maison," Emily said softly, giving her warm smile. Mr. Harrison barely looked at her. "Table for 4. Make sure it's quiet. We don't want to sit near anyone ordinary," he said, looking around the restaurant with clear disapproval. Emily nodded and guided them to a private corner table with the best view. She handed them menus and said politely, "Please take your time. I'll be right back with your water." As she walked away, she could hear Amanda whisper to her brother, "Look at her shoes. They're so old." Ryan chuckled and said, "Maybe she's saving up for new ones." They laughed quietly, thinking Emily couldn't hear them, but she did. Still, she kept walking calmly, refusing to let their words hurt her. When she returned with water, Mrs. Harrison frowned. "You took long enough," she said coldly. "Do you have trouble understanding simple instructions?" Emily lowered her eyes slightly. "I'm very sorry, ma'am. I just wanted to make sure your table was perfect." Her polite voice only seemed to annoy the woman more. "Don't talk back," she snapped. Mr. Harrison interrupted. "You know, young lady, in our business, people like you should be grateful we even come here. It's good for your restaurant's image." He laughed, clearly expecting Emily to agree. She just smiled faintly and said, "We're always happy to have our guests here, sir." Her calmness irritated them even more. When she began taking their order, Amanda rolled her eyes. "Do you even know what foie gras is? Or should I explain it to you?" Emily nodded patiently. "Yes, ma'am. I'll make sure it's prepared just how you like it." Amanda sneered. "Don't mess it up. This meal costs more than your entire paycheck." Her brother laughed loudly. enjoying his sister's cruelty. Around them, other customers began to notice the tension. Some whispered in shock at how the family was treating her. But Emily didn't react. She moved with quiet dignity, serving food, pouring drinks, and keeping her voice steady. Even when Ryan deliberately spilled wine on the table and blamed her, saying, "Be careful, you're ruining my suit," she simply apologized and cleaned the mess without complaint. Mr. Parker, the manager, saw what was happening but hesitated to interfere. The Harrisons were powerful clients, and he didn't want to risk offending them. Emily noticed his concern and gave him a small nod, silently assuring him she could handle it. Her strength and grace were remarkable. As the night went on, the Harrisons continued to mock her. Amanda snapped her fingers whenever she needed something, treating Emily like a servant. Mrs. Harrison complained about the smallest things, like the temperature of her soup or the way the napkin was folded. Mr. Harrison kept making comments about people who should know their place. Emily's co-workers felt angry for her, but she never lost her gentle smile. Inside, she felt a quiet sadness, not because they were rich, but because they were so empty inside. She had met kind rich people before, people who treated her like a human being. But this family believed that money gave them the right to look down on others. At one point, Amanda said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Dad, people like her should be thankful for tips from us. I'd hate to live like that." Mr. Harrison laughed. "Well, that's why they work here and we don't." The whole restaurant fell silent for a moment. Emily's heart pounded, but she simply turned and walked toward the kitchen, whispering to herself, "Breathe, Emily. Don't let them take your peace." Little did the Harrisons know that the woman they were insulting had a story they couldn't even imagine. They saw only a waitress, but behind that apron was someone who carried more class, kindness, and strength than they ever would. As Emily returned to serve dessert, Ryan leaned back in his chair and said sarcastically, "You know, you should smile more. Maybe someone rich will take pity and marry you one day." His mother laughed cruelly. The comment hit deep, but Emily didn't show it. She looked at them with calm eyes and said softly, "A kind heart is worth more than all the diamonds in the world, sir." Her words silenced them for a moment, but before anyone could react, Mrs. Harrison's expression turned angry. "How dare you talk to us like that? Do you know who we are?" she shouted. Emily bowed her head respectfully. "Yes, ma'am," she said. "You're our guests, and I'm here to make sure you're treated well." Then she walked away with quiet pride, leaving them speechless for a second. But the humiliation wasn't over yet. The Harrison family had one more cruel idea in mind, a demand so humiliating that it would test Emily's patience like never before. And just when it seemed that things couldn't get worse, fate was about to send someone through the restaurant doors who would change everything. Because the moment that woman walked in, wearing a glittering diamond ring, Emily's life, and the Harrison family's pride, would never be the same again. The restaurant was glowing under the golden lights of evening. Guests laughed softly over their dinners, music played in the background, and everything seemed peaceful, except at the corner table where the Harrison family sat. Emily tried her best to stay calm, even though her heart felt heavy. Every word from them that night had been a small knife cutting into her dignity. But she didn't let it show. She moved like a gentle wave, polite and graceful, even when they mocked her for things she hadn't done wrong. When she came to clear their plates, Amanda, the daughter, suddenly said in a loud voice, "Waitress, come here." Emily turned and walked to the table with her usual smile. "Yes, ma'am. How can I help you?" Amanda pointed at a small water stain on the edge of the tablecloth. "What is this? Can't you even keep a table clean?" she said sharply. Emily looked at the spot. It was almost invisible, but she still apologized softly. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll clean it right away." Mr. Harrison leaned back in his chair, watching Emily like she was a servant from another world. "You know," he said loudly, "this is what happens when people without education work in fancy places. They just don't belong here." His wife laughed quietly, covering her mouth with her diamond-covered hand. "I wonder if she even went to school," she added. Emily's hands trembled slightly as she wiped the table, but she didn't answer. The other customers nearby were beginning to notice the cruelty of the family, whispering to one another. Some looked angry, others looked uncomfortable. But the Harrisons didn't care, they loved attention. Ryan, the son, leaned forward and said with a smirk, "You know, my dad's right. You should be grateful to even stand near people like us. Maybe you'll learn something about success." Emily took a deep breath and said quietly, "Success isn't about money, sir. It's about respect." Her voice was calm but firm. That single line shocked everyone at the table. Mrs. Harrison's smile disappeared instantly. "Excuse me? Did you just talk back to my son?" she said in disbelief. Emily looked down and replied, "No, ma'am. I just meant that respect is something everyone deserves." Her words, though gentle, hit deep. The rich woman's face turned red with anger. "How dare you speak to us like that?" Mr. Harrison thundered. "You think because you can smile politely that you're equal to us? You're just a waitress. Your job is to serve and stay quiet." His voice was so loud that the entire restaurant fell silent. All eyes turned toward them. Emily's co-workers froze, unsure of what to do. Emily's heart pounded. She could feel tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She simply said, "I'm sorry, sir, if I offended you. That wasn't my intention." But the family wasn't satisfied. They wanted more, they wanted to break her spirit. Amanda crossed her arms and said coldly, "You don't look sorry. Maybe you should prove it. Go on. Kneel down and apologize properly." Everyone gasped. The sound of forks and glasses stopping midair echoed through the room. Emily stared at her in shock. "Ma'am?" she whispered, unsure if she had heard correctly. Amanda repeated, louder this time, "I said kneel. People like you should remember their place." The words hit Emily like a thunderbolt. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Her hands went cold. She had faced rude customers before, but never something like this. To them, it was just another way to show power, to remind her that she was less. Mr. Parker, the manager, hurried over when he heard the shouting. "Is everything all right here?" he asked nervously. Mr. Harrison waved his hand dismissively. "No, it's not. Your waitress disrespected us. We're asking for a simple apology." On her knees, the manager looked at Emily helplessly. He didn't know what to do. Losing a powerful customer like the Harrison family could destroy the restaurant's reputation. But humiliating Emily in front of everyone felt wrong. Emily noticed the conflict in his eyes and gently said, "It's okay, sir. I'll handle it." She turned back to the Harrisons. Her voice was calm, though her heart was breaking inside. "I'm sorry if my words upset you," she said quietly, "but I will not kneel. I'm doing my job with honesty, and I believe I've treated you with respect." Amanda slammed her hand on the table. "Who do you think you are to talk to us like this?" she shouted. Ryan laughed mockingly. "Maybe she thinks she's some kind of princess," he said. Emily stood still, her hands clasped in front of her, her head slightly bowed. "No, sir," she said softly. "I'm just a person, same as you. I work hard, and I try to treat everyone kindly." Her quiet strength made the entire room fall silent again. Some guests even began clapping softly, admiring her courage. But the Harrisons only grew angrier at the sight of people supporting her. Mrs. Harrison hissed, "You'll regret this attitude, young lady. Do you know who my husband is? He can ruin your life with one phone call." Emily nodded slowly and said, "Maybe he can, ma'am, but he can't take away my self-respect." That simple line hit harder than any insult could. The room felt frozen in time. Even Mr. Parker couldn't speak. The Harrison family stared at her, speechless for the first time that night. Emily took a small step back and said gently, "Please enjoy the rest of your evening. I'll send another waiter to assist you." She turned and walked toward the kitchen. Every step felt heavy, but her heart felt lighter. She had stood up for herself, not with anger, but with grace. She didn't care if she lost her job. She only cared that she hadn't lost her dignity. Inside the kitchen, she leaned against the wall, taking deep breaths. Her coworkers surrounded her, whispering, "Emily, that was so brave." She smiled weakly and said, "It's okay. Some people just don't understand." Little did she know, fate was already setting the stage for what would happen next. Because just when she thought the humiliation was over, something unexpected was about to happen. A woman would soon walk through the restaurant doors, a woman whose presence would turn the whole situation upside down. And that woman wouldn't just be anyone. She would be wearing something that sparkled so brightly it would silence every cruel word that had been spoken that night. A diamond ring that carried the truth about who Emily really was. The restaurant had gone quiet after the painful scene with the Harrison family. Emily continued to work, trying to hold back her emotions. She forced a small smile and carried on serving other tables, even though inside her heart felt like it was breaking. She was tired of being treated like she was invisible, tired of pretending that words didn't hurt. But she stayed strong because she knew that losing her calm would only make things worse. The Harrison family, however, didn't stop. They whispered and laughed at her from their table, enjoying their own cruelty. The other guests looked uncomfortable, but no one dared to say anything. The restaurant, usually full of soft music and laughter, now felt heavy and tense. Emily focused on her work, her mind quietly repeating, "Just a little longer. Your shift will end soon." Outside, the evening was cool, and the city lights sparkled. The restaurant's doors opened suddenly, and everyone turned to look. A woman walked in gracefully, her presence commanding attention. She was dressed in a stunning white dress that shimmered softly under the golden lights. Her heels clicked against the floor as she walked, and on her hand was a diamond ring that sparkled like a star. Every head in the restaurant turned toward her. Even the Harrison family paused mid-laughter, staring in surprise. The hostess rushed forward, clearly recognizing her as someone important. "Good evening, ma'am. Do you have a reservation?" she asked politely. The woman smiled warmly and replied, "No, I'm here to meet someone who works here. Her name is Emily." Emily, who was carrying a tray near the counter, froze when she heard her name. She turned slowly, and her eyes widened in shock. The woman walking toward her wasn't just any customer. It was Clara, her closest friend from college. It had been years since Emily last saw Clara. They had studied together and shared dreams about the future. Clara had always been ambitious, chasing success and luxury, while Emily had chosen a simpler path. After graduation, they lost contact when Clara moved abroad. Now, seeing her standing there, elegant and confident, felt almost unreal. "Clara?" Emily whispered softly, almost afraid it was a dream. Clara's face lit up with joy. "Emily, I can't believe it's you," she said, walking straight toward her and hugging her tightly. The customers looked on, surprised by the emotional reunion. But the Harrisons were watching closely, curiosity gleaming in their eyes. "Look at that," Amanda muttered to her brother. "She actually knows someone who can afford real jewelry." Ryan smirked. "Maybe she's a fan of rich people," he said under his breath. But neither of them had any idea who Clara truly was, or what she had come to do. Clara pulled away slightly and looked at Emily's tired face. "You look exhausted. What happened?" she asked gently. Emily shook her head, forcing a smile. "It's nothing, really. Just another busy day at work." But Clara could tell something was wrong. She noticed the tension in the air, the uncomfortable stares from the corner table, and the way Emily's coworkers avoided looking directly at her. "Who were those people?" Clara asked quietly, glancing toward the Harrison family. Emily hesitated. "Just some guests. Please don't make a scene," she whispered. But Clara wasn't someone who ignored injustice, especially when it came to her friend. She turned sharply toward the Harrisons' table and started walking in their direction. The entire restaurant watched in silence. Her white dress flowed elegantly as she moved, and the diamond ring on her hand glimmered under the lights. She stopped in front of the table, looking at each of them with calm, steady eyes. "Good evening," she said politely. "I'm sorry to interrupt your dinner, but I need to ask, were you the ones who disrespected that waitress just now?" Mr. Harrison frowned immediately. "Who are you to question us?" he said coldly. "This is none of your business." Clara smiled, but there was a firmness in her expression. "Oh, it is my business," she said softly, "because that waitress you humiliated happens to be engaged to someone I know very well." The Harrisons looked confused. "Engaged? To who?" Amanda asked with a mocking laugh. "A delivery driver? Or maybe the restaurant cleaner?" Clara tilted her head slightly and said, "To Daniel Harrison." The laughter stopped instantly. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison froze in place. Amanda's smirk vanished. Ryan's jaw dropped open. The air around them turned cold and silent. What did you just say?" Mrs. Harrison asked, her voice shaking slightly. Clara repeated calmly, "Emily, the woman you just insulted, is engaged to Daniel Harrison. Your son." Gasps echoed around the restaurant. Everyone turned toward the Harrisons in disbelief. Emily stood still, her eyes wide, unable to speak. She hadn't expected Clara to reveal the truth like that, but it was too late now. The secret she had tried to keep was out in the open. Clara looked at Emily and smiled softly. "I told Daniel I'd return this to you today," she said, taking off the diamond ring and holding it up for everyone to see. "He said it belongs to his future wife." The diamond sparkled under the restaurant lights like a beam of truth. Every person in the room could see it clearly. The same family who had mocked and tried to humiliate Emily was now realizing that she wasn't just a poor waitress. They had been cruel to their own son's fiancée. Mr. Harrison's face turned pale. "This must be a mistake," he said quickly. "Daniel would never." But Clara interrupted firmly, "Oh, it's no mistake. Daniel sent me this ring himself. He told me how kind and humble Emily is, how she never judges anyone, and how he's proud to have her in his life." The silence that followed was powerful. The once proud family looked completely lost. Amanda looked down, ashamed. Mrs. Harrison's lips trembled as she tried to speak, but no words came out. The people who had made fun of Emily's shoes and her job now couldn't even meet her eyes. Emily stood there quietly, unsure what to do. Clara walked back to her and gently took her hand. She placed the diamond ring in Emily's palm and whispered, "You don't have to hide who you are, Emily. You're worth more than all their money combined." Tears filled Emily's eyes, not because she wanted revenge, but because she finally felt seen. All her patience, all her dignity, all her kindness had brought her to this moment. The truth had come out, not through anger, but through fate. As the restaurant watched, Clara turned back to the Harrisons one last time. "Maybe next time," she said softly, "you'll think twice before judging someone by their uniform." Then she gently guided Emily away, leaving the Millionaire family speechless and humiliated. The whole restaurant erupted in quiet applause. Some smiled, some had tears in their eyes, and others shook their heads in disbelief. The once proud Harrisons now sat silently, their faces red with embarrassment. That night, everyone learned an unforgettable lesson. That money could buy luxury, but it could never buy grace, kindness, or respect. And as Emily walked out of the restaurant beside her friend, the diamond ring glimmering on her finger, it wasn't just a piece of jewelry anymore. It was a symbol of truth, dignity, and quiet strength that no one could ever take away from her. The restaurant was filled with complete silence after Clara's shocking words. Everyone was staring at Emily, the quiet waitress they had watched being humiliated minutes ago. The Harrison family sat frozen at their table, unable to believe what they had just heard. The truth had fallen like a heavy stone in the middle of their prideful world, breaking everything they thought they knew. Emily stood still, her eyes wide with surprise, her mind spinning. She had never wanted things to be revealed this way, but now everything was out in the open. Clara still held Emily's hand firmly, as if giving her strength. The diamond ring sparkled brightly under the restaurant's lights, almost as if it was shining with its own pride. Clara spoke again, her voice calm but strong. "Yes, you heard me right. This woman you tried to embarrass, this kind, hard-working waitress, is Daniel Harrison's fiancé. The son you always brag about, the one who studied abroad and runs your company's projects? He chose her." Mr. Harrison blinked rapidly, his mouth slightly open but no words coming out. "That's impossible," he finally stammered. "My son would never. He couldn't possibly." Clara interrupted gently. "He could, and he did. He proposed to her last week." She looked at Emily lovingly. "He told me himself how much he admired her honesty and heart. He said she reminded him what real kindness means." Mrs. Harrison's hands began to shake. "No, that can't be true," she whispered. "You must be mistaken. My son wouldn't hide something like this from us." Clara smiled faintly. "He didn't hide it. He wanted to tell you himself. But he said he was waiting for the right moment because he knew you would judge her for not being rich. And tonight, I can see he was right." The words hit the family like cold water. Amanda's face turned red. She lowered her eyes, unable to meet Emily's gaze. Ryan looked around awkwardly, trying to avoid everyone's stares. Mr. Harrison rubbed his temples, as if the truth was too heavy to handle. Emily felt her heart beating fast. She hadn't spoken yet, still processing everything. Her throat felt dry, and her hands trembled slightly. "Clara," she said softly, "you didn't have to do this. I didn't want to make a scene." Clara turned to her with a gentle smile. "Emily, you didn't make a scene. They did. All I did was show them the truth." The crowd in the restaurant whispered among themselves, still stunned. People were murmuring words like, "Unbelievable," and "What a twist." The waiters stood frozen, some with small smiles on their faces, proud of Emily's dignity being restored. Finally, Mr. Harrison stood up. His proud, arrogant expression was gone. He looked uncertain, almost small. "Is this true?" he asked Emily, his voice trembling. "Are you really engaged to my son?" Emily hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Yes, sir. Daniel asked me to marry him. I didn't tell anyone because I didn't want people to think differently of me at work." Mrs. Harrison looked pale as she placed her hand on her chest. "But how? How did he even meet you?" Emily took a deep breath and replied softly. "He came here many times for dinner. We talked. He was kind and humble, not like most people. He never treated me like I was less than him. We became friends first, and then we fell in love." Amanda, who had been silent all this time, finally spoke in a shaky voice. I'm sorry," she said quietly. "We didn't know." But her words sounded weak, almost meaningless compared to the cruelty she had shown earlier. Mrs. Harrison quickly stood up, forcing a nervous laugh. "Well, I suppose this is quite a surprise," she said, trying to sound calm. "Emily, dear, please sit with us. I think we've had a misunderstanding." But everyone in the restaurant could see through her sudden change in tone. A few minutes ago, she had looked at Emily with disgust. Now she was pretending to be polite only because she had discovered who Emily truly was. Emily shook her head slowly. "No, ma'am," she said gently. "There's no need. I think everything that needed to be said is already clear." Her voice was soft, but her words carried a quiet power. Clara crossed her arms and looked at the family. "Do you see now?" she said. "Money doesn't make you better than others. It only shows who you really are when you think no one important is watching." Mr. Harrison's face turned red with shame. "You're right," he admitted slowly. "We behaved terribly." He looked at Emily, struggling to meet her eyes. I'm sorry." Emily looked at him, her eyes calm and forgiving. "Thank you, sir," she said quietly. "But please don't apologize to me because of who I'm engaged to. Apologize because it's the right thing to do." Her words struck him deeply. He nodded slowly, unable to say more. The restaurant fell quiet again. No one knew what to say next. It was as if everyone was afraid to disturb the moment. Clara placed the diamond ring gently on Emily's finger, her hands trembling slightly. The stone caught the light beautifully, reflecting all the emotions in the room. Shock, regret, and awe. "It looks perfect on you," Clara whispered. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes. She never cared much for diamonds or luxury, but at that moment, the ring meant something more. It meant truth, love, and dignity. It was a reminder that she had value, no matter what others said. The Harrison family sat down again, silent and embarrassed. Amanda wiped her eyes quietly, while Ryan looked down at his plate, wishing he could disappear. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison exchanged a glance, realizing that all their pride and wealth couldn't hide how small they looked in front of a woman they had tried to humiliate. Clara turned to Emily and smiled proudly. "Let's go," she said softly. "You've had enough for tonight." Emily nodded. She untied her apron and handed it to her manager. Mr. Parker looked at her with admiration. "Emily, I'm sorry I didn't step in earlier," he said quietly. "You didn't deserve this." Emily smiled kindly. "It's okay, sir. Some lessons just happen in front of everyone." With that, she walked toward the door beside Clara. The guests watched her leave, many of them smiling or even clapping quietly. The Harrison family stayed frozen in their seats, realizing that their arrogance had destroyed their pride in front of the entire restaurant. Outside, the cool night air touched Emily's face. She looked up at the stars and felt lighter, free. Clara wrapped an arm around her shoulder and said softly, "You handled that better than anyone else could have." Emily smiled faintly. "I didn't do anything special," she replied. "I just stayed true to myself." And as the two friends walked away, the diamond ring on Emily's finger shone under the streetlights, not as a symbol of wealth, but as a reminder that dignity, respect, and kindness are worth more than all the gold in the world. That night, Emily didn't just leave a restaurant. She left behind a lesson that everyone inside would remember forever. The restaurant was silent for a long moment after Emily and Clara's revelation. Everyone, from the waiters to the customers, sat in complete shock. The Harrison family looked like they had turned to stone. The same people who had mocked and humiliated Emily only a few minutes ago were now pale and speechless. Their eyes were full of confusion, shame, and disbelief. Mr. Harrison, who had always been known for his arrogance, sat with his hands on the table, his mind racing. His pride was crushed in front of everyone. He couldn't believe that the woman he had insulted so cruelly was soon going to become a part of his own family. His wife, Mrs. Harrison, looked equally stunned. She had been so confident, so proud, so quick to judge. But now, her words echoed in her mind like painful reminders of her cruelty. Amanda, the daughter, who had laughed at Emily's shoes and whispered insults behind her back, stared down at her plate, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. She remembered how she had told her mother earlier, "People like her are born to serve us." Now those words made her feel sick inside. Ryan, the older son, shifted uncomfortably in his chair, wishing he could disappear. No one in the Harrison family dared to look up at the people watching them. The other guests in the restaurant whispered among themselves. Some shook their heads disapprovingly, while others looked at Emily with admiration. Everyone had seen how kind and calm she had been, even when she was insulted, and now they realized just how strong she really was. The same waitress who had been ordered to kneel had stood taller than anyone in that room. Mr. Parker, the restaurant manager, approached the table carefully. His face showed both shock and sympathy. "Mr. Harrison," he said quietly, "I think it would be best if you and your family took a moment to cool down." But Mr. Harrison didn't move. He was too lost in his thoughts. He finally looked up at Emily, who stood near the door with Clara, still holding her apron. "Emily," he said slowly, his voice trembling slightly, I don't know what to say." Emily looked at him calmly. There was no anger in her eyes, only sadness. "You don't need to say anything, sir," she said softly. "You've already said enough tonight." Mrs. Harrison's lips trembled. "Please, Emily," she said quickly, trying to regain her dignity. "We didn't mean to treat you so harshly. We just didn't know who you were." Emily looked at her for a long moment, then replied, "But that's the problem, ma'am. You shouldn't have to know who someone is to treat them with respect." Her words cut through the air like truth no one could deny. Even Clara, who stood beside her, felt tears rise in her eyes. The other guests nodded silently, feeling the weight of Emily's words. Mrs. Harrison lowered her head, ashamed. "You're right," she whispered. "You're absolutely right." Amanda suddenly stood up, her voice shaky. "Emily," she said quietly, "I'm sorry. I was cruel to you. I shouldn't have judged you. You didn't deserve that." Emily smiled faintly, her expression soft but firm. "Thank you," she said gently. "I forgive you. But please remember how this felt. The next time you meet someone who doesn't have fancy clothes or a big name, treat them like a human being. That's all anyone wants." Her calm and graceful words touched everyone deeply. People began to clap softly, not for drama, but out of respect. The sound of clapping filled the restaurant like a quiet wave of truth and justice. Mr. Harrison sighed heavily and stood up. "Emily," he said, his voice full of regret, "I've built my life on power and pride. I thought money made people worthy. But tonight you showed me what real worth looks like. I am truly sorry." Emily nodded slightly. "I accept your apology, sir," she said softly. "But please don't apologize to me just because of who I'm engaged to. Apologize because it's the right thing to do." Those words struck him deeply. He looked down, ashamed, realizing she was right again. His wife reached for his hand, tears welling in her eyes. "We've been wrong for so long," she whispered to him. Clara, watching the scene, smiled with quiet pride. She turned to Emily and said softly, "You see, you didn't need revenge. Your truth spoke for itself." Emily smiled weakly. "Yes," she replied. "But it still hurts, Clara. It hurts that people see uniforms, not hearts." Clara nodded. "It does. But tonight you changed that, for everyone here." Around the restaurant, people were still whispering, but now they were speaking about Emily with admiration. A young woman at another table said to her friend, "Can you believe how calm she was? I would have screamed at them." Her friend replied, "That's what makes her special. She didn't let anger win." Meanwhile, the Harrison family sat quietly, each lost in their own guilt. Amanda wiped her eyes and said softly to her mother, "I think we owe her more than just an apology." Mrs. Harrison nodded slowly. "We owe her respect, and our son owes her everything." Mr. Harrison looked up again, his expression thoughtful. "She'll make Daniel a better man," he said quietly. "Maybe she'll make all of us better people." Emily took one last look around the restaurant. She saw the faces of the people who had once judged her now filled with admiration. It was a strange feeling. She didn't feel triumphant or proud. She just felt peaceful, as if a heavy weight had been lifted off her heart. She turned to Mr. Parker, her manager, and smiled kindly. "Thank you for everything, sir," she said. "You've always been fair to me." Mr. Parker nodded, clearly moved. "You've been one of the best workers I've ever had, Emily," he said. "And now, I see you're also one of the strongest people I've ever met." Emily's eyes softened. "Thank you," she whispered. As she and Clara walked toward the exit, the guests quietly watched them go. The sound of their footsteps echoed through the room. Outside, the night air was cool and gentle, and the streetlights glowed softly around them. Clara looked at her friend and said, "You know, Emily, that was one of the bravest things I've ever seen." Emily shook her head. "I wasn't brave," she said quietly. "I just refused to let them take away my self-respect." Clara smiled. "That's what bravery really is." Back inside, the Harrison family sat in silence, reflecting on everything that had happened. For the first time, they felt the sting of humility. They realized that all their wealth, all their luxury, couldn't erase the shame of how they had treated a good person. That night, Mr. Harrison made a promise to himself. Never again would he look down on anyone, no matter who they were. And though Emily didn't see it, her kindness had planted a seed of change in their hearts. The story of that evening would be told many times in that restaurant, about a humble waitress who faced cruelty with grace, who stood tall when others tried to make her kneel, and who proved that respect, not money, is what truly makes a person rich. The night air outside the restaurant felt calm and peaceful, but inside, hearts were still racing from what had just happened. Emily stood near the door, holding her apron, her hands trembling slightly. Everyone in the restaurant had seen the truth, how a simple, kind-hearted waitress had faced cruelty with grace and had come out stronger. But now, after everything, Emily had a choice to make. Would she walk away in silence? Or would she speak her heart before leaving? Clara looked at her with concern. Emily, she said softly, you don't have to say anything. You've already proven your point. But Emily shook her head slowly. No, Clara. I need to say something. Not just for them, but for everyone watching. People need to understand that what happened tonight isn't about me. It's about respect. With quiet courage, Emily turned around and walked back toward the Harrison family's table. Every eye in the restaurant followed her. You could hear the soft clinking of glasses and the hum of whispers as she approached. The Harrisons looked up in surprise. They didn't expect her to come back. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat awkwardly. Emily, he began, his voice uncertain. Please, we're truly sorry for everything that happened. Emily smiled gently, but there was sadness in her eyes. I believe you, sir, she said calmly. But I need to say something before I go. The restaurant fell completely silent again. Even the waiters stopped moving. Emily took a deep breath and spoke, her voice steady but full of emotion. When I came to work tonight, I didn't expect anything special. I just wanted to do my job like I always do. Serve food, smile, and make sure everyone was happy. That's what I do every day. And most of the time, I'm invisible to people. They eat their meals, talk about their lives, and never really look at me. That's okay, it's part of the job. But what's not okay is when people treat others as if they're less human, just because they're wearing an apron instead of a suit. Her words were soft, but they carried so much power that everyone could feel them. Mrs. Harrison lowered her eyes, and Amanda wiped away tears silently. Emily continued, I know I'm not rich. I don't have fancy clothes or a big house. But I work hard. Every plate I serve, every table I clean, it's all to earn an honest living. There is nothing shameful about that. What's shameful is when people think money gives them the right to humiliate others. She paused for a moment, her eyes glancing at each member of the Harrison family. You asked me to kneel, she said quietly. You wanted me to bow just because you thought I was beneath you. But the truth is, kindness doesn't kneel. Dignity doesn't kneel. No matter how much you have, if you don't have respect for others, you have nothing. The words hit them like thunder. Mr. Harrison closed his eyes, his face full of regret. He wanted to say something, but no words came out. Emily then turned slightly, looking around the room at the other guests who had witnessed everything. And to everyone here, she said softly, please remember, it costs nothing to be kind. You never know what someone's going through. You don't know their story. You don't know their pain. So before you judge someone by how they look, remember that they might be fighting battles you can't see. A tear rolled down her cheek, but she didn't wipe it away. It made her words feel even more real. People in the restaurant nodded silently. Some were even crying quietly. Clara stepped closer, her eyes full of pride. Emily, she whispered. That was beautiful. Emily smiled faintly. It's just the truth, she said softly. Then she turned back to the Harrison family. I don't hate you, she added gently. I don't even want revenge. I just hope you'll treat people differently from now on. Because real respect isn't shown in how you treat people above you. It's shown in how you treat people below you. Her voice trembled slightly at the end, but it was filled with so much sincerity that no one could doubt her words. Mrs. Harrison stood up slowly, her eyes red. You're right, she said in a shaky voice. You're absolutely right, Emily. I've lived my whole life thinking money made me important. But tonight, I saw how wrong I was. I'm sorry. Emily nodded gently. Thank you, ma'am, she said. Apologies matter when they come from the heart. Amanda stood as well, her voice quiet and trembling. I'm sorry too, she said. You didn't deserve how I treated you. I was jealous, maybe, or just spoiled. But I'll never forget this night. Emily smiled softly at her. We all make mistakes, she replied. What matters is that we learn from them. Mr. Harrison finally spoke again, his voice low and humble. You have my word, Emily. Things will change. I'll make sure of it. Emily nodded again and stepped back. That's all I hope for, she said. Then she untied her apron slowly and folded it neatly. She handed it to Mr. Parker, her manager, who looked at her with deep respect. "Emily," he said quietly, "you've taught everyone here something tonight. I'm proud of you." She smiled. "Thank you for believing in me." Clara placed an arm around her shoulder. "Ready to go?" Emily nodded. Together, they began to walk toward the door. The sound of their footsteps echoed softly. But before she reached the exit, a quiet sound filled the air, clapping. At first, it was just one person, then another, and soon the entire restaurant erupted in applause. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was gentle, full of admiration. People were smiling through tears, touched by what they had seen. Emily turned slightly and smiled shyly. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Her grace, her calm, and her words had spoken louder than anything else. Outside, the cool breeze brushed against her face. Clara squeezed her hand. "You handled that better than anyone could have," she said softly. Emily looked up at the stars, her eyes full of peace. "Maybe," she said quietly, "but I just did what felt right. You can't fight cruelty with anger. You fight it with dignity." As they walked away, the sound of laughter and music slowly returned to the restaurant, but something had changed forever inside. People would remember that night, the night a humble waitress reminded a room full of wealthy people what real class looks like. Emily didn't look back. She didn't need to. She had already left her mark, not through wealth or power, but through kindness and courage. And somewhere far away, Daniel, the man who had loved her for her heart, would have been proud to know that the woman he chose had changed so many lives in a single evening. In that moment, Emily knew something deep inside. True strength isn't about shouting or fighting. It's about standing tall when the world tries to make you small. And that night, in her quiet, graceful way, she had done exactly that. The next morning, the city woke up to a story that was spreading like wildfire. Videos, pictures, and posts about the incident at the luxurious restaurant were everywhere online. People were talking about the brave waitress who had been humiliated by a rich family, and how she stood up with calm dignity. Her name, Emily, was on everyone's lips. What had started as a painful night had now turned into something much bigger. A story that was teaching people around the world an unforgettable lesson. Emily herself didn't even know at first how viral her story had become. She woke up early, as always, ready to go for her morning walk. She didn't check her phone until Clara called her, her voice full of excitement. "Emily, you're all over the news. Everyone's talking about you." Emily blinked in surprise. "What? What do you mean?" Clara laughed. "Someone in the restaurant recorded the whole thing. The way you stood up for yourself, the things you said, it's everywhere. Millions of people have watched it already." Emily didn't know what to say. She sat down on her bed, still in her pajamas, and opened her phone. Notifications flooded her screen. Messages from strangers, comments, and articles titled things like, "Waitress teaches millionaires a lesson in humanity," and "Humility shines brighter than wealth." Her eyes filled with tears as she read the messages. People from all over the world were writing to her. Waitresses, cashiers, drivers, and even business owners, thanking her for standing up with grace instead of anger. "You made us proud," one message said. Another read, "You reminded us that kindness still exists." Clara arrived soon after with coffee and a huge smile. "See? I told you, people need stories like yours," she said, sitting beside her. Emily shook her head gently. "I didn't do anything special, Clara. I just told the truth." Clara smiled softly. "That's what makes it special. You didn't fight with hate. You showed what real strength looks like." Meanwhile, at the Harrison mansion, the mood was completely different. The family had barely slept. They had seen the same videos, read the same comments, but instead of pride, they felt only guilt. Mr. Harrison sat quietly in his study, watching the viral video on his laptop for what felt like the 100th time. Every word Emily had said echoed in his mind. "You shouldn't have to know who someone is to treat them with respect." Those words had pierced straight through his pride. Mrs. Harrison, who had always cared about her reputation more than anything else, now felt something she hadn't felt in years: shame. The world was judging her for how she had treated another human being. She realized that money had made her blind, unable to see the worth of people who didn't wear expensive clothes. Amanda and Ryan both avoided going out for days. Their friends had seen the video too. Amanda received messages calling her spoiled and heartless. It hurt, but deep down, she knew she deserved it. After a few days, Mr. Harrison gathered his family in the living room. "We can't undo what we did," he said quietly. "But we can try to make things right." Amanda looked up nervously. "You mean, apologize again?" He nodded. "Not just to her. To everyone we've ever treated unfairly. Our company, our staff, even the people who work in our house, we owe them respect. Real respect." For the first time, the family agreed without arguing. Something inside them had changed. Later that week, Mr. Harrison personally visited the restaurant. Everyone was surprised to see him walking in without his usual arrogance. He asked for Mr. Parker, the manager, and said humbly, "I came to apologize again, not just for that night, but for everything." Mr. Parker nodded slowly. "That means a lot, sir. Emily isn't here right now, but I'll tell her you came." When Mr. Harrison walked out, he noticed the other waiters watching him, not with fear or respect for his money, but with quiet disbelief that he had changed so much. For once, he didn't care about his image. He just wanted to be better. Back at home, Emily decided to quit her job at the restaurant. It wasn't because she was angry or embarrassed. It was because she wanted to start a new chapter in her life. She and Daniel, her fiancé, had talked about it for weeks. Daniel had returned from abroad after hearing everything, and when he met her again, his eyes were full of admiration. "I saw the video," he said softly, holding her hands. "You didn't just stand up for yourself. You stood up for everyone who's ever been treated badly. I'm so proud of you." Emily smiled, tears in her eyes. "I just said what needed to be said." They decided to have a small wedding, nothing fancy, just close friends and family, including, surprisingly, the Harrison family. This time, they were different. Mr. Harrison walked up to her with genuine warmth. "Emily," he said, "you've taught us more than any lesson money could buy. Thank you for giving us a chance to change." Emily smiled gently. "People can change if they truly want to," she said. The wedding was beautiful in its simplicity. Flowers, laughter, and love. Emily wore a simple white dress, and on her fingers sparkled the same diamond ring that had once caused such a scene. But now it wasn't a symbol of wealth. It was a symbol of everything she had been through, of dignity, respect, and quiet strength. After the wedding, Emily continued to inspire people. She began speaking at local community events, encouraging others to value kindness and equality. "You don't need power to make a difference," she would say. "All you need is courage and a kind heart." Her story was even featured on television shows and in magazines. But Emily stayed humble through it all. She never chased fame or attention. Whenever someone asked her how it felt to become famous, she would just smile and say, "I'm not famous. I just told the truth." Years passed, but people never forgot her story. In that restaurant, new waiters would hear about the waitress with the diamond ring. A story told to remind them never to lose their self-respect, no matter how others treated them. And for the Harrisons, the lesson stayed with them forever. Mr. Harrison started a foundation to support hospitality workers, in honor of Emily. Mrs. Harrison volunteered at shelters and often spoke about humility. Amanda went back to school and studied social work, wanting to help those she had once looked down upon. As for Emily, she continued to live a simple, peaceful life with Daniel. They weren't the richest people in the world, but their hearts were full. And every time she looked at her diamond ring, she remembered not the pain of that night, but the lesson that came from it. That real worth has nothing to do with money, but everything to do with kindness, courage, and respect. And somewhere, deep inside her heart, Emily knew one thing for sure. Sometimes life puts you in painful situations not to break you, but to show others what true strength looks like. That was her story. Not just of love, but of dignity, faith, and the quiet power of staying kind in a cruel world. And though time passed, the message never faded. You don't need riches to shine. You just need a heart that knows its own worth.